Hello and welcome to a brand new Internet Friends episode. I am completely botching the intro again because God forbid I do this correctly anytime.
Yeah.
Uh, in this episode, it's 420, so blaze it.
Yeah.
Clothing it up. I got the thingy.
Joke about burning down Seth's house. He's gonna do a dab, but not the one that you Zennials watching are familiar with.
It's legal where we all live. So we're clear.
This show is going completely off the rails, by the way. I'm not going to be able to stay normal right now.
That's exactly what I wanted, Seth.
Perfect.
I was about to say, if you and Brie
You
ever
like
show
my-
up normal
my
on this show,
bisexual,
I am basically kicking you off.
Fair. Do you like my pink and blue dab rig?
Of course I do.
It needs to be cleaned.
I was actually talking with Seth before the show started about a bunch of 420 stuff. Mostly how, like, Virginia's laws are still, like, really weird because, like, it's completely decriminalized. Like, it's just like, oh, you can have up to an ounce. You could be throwing, like, 3 plants in your house. That's all totally fine. But, like, dispensaries can't technically sell to you without some kind of, like, medical certification.
Okay.
So, like, it's just, like, it's completely all over the place. And apparently they're still, like, doing legislative stuff of, like, figuring out what the rules are.
That's so weird. Because
Yeah.
we've had legalized weed for a while now. It seems like there's a way that works.
Yeah. It's been
It's
since
more or
2020 here, so.
Yeah, it's more or less just like, hey, if you have it, we don't care. If you're smoking it at your house, we don't care. Just maybe don't drive.
I think that's more than reasonable.
As somebody who has smoked a bowl while driving down the highway with my knee, you might be fine.
Pass the statute of limitations.
I was smoking a bowl, driving with my knee, driving over straight lines into a state where it was not legalized. Yeah, this was a great decision 25-year-old Seth was making.
It's only a crime if you get caught. Everyone knows that, so.
True.
Can't charge a man after the crime. Wait. No, but me and Seth were actually talking kind of beforehand. I was kind of like making the point of like how much different weed culture is from when we were growing up. Because
It's already a much better intro than the first one. Like, we've
Really?
been able to stay on
Thank
topic.
we had to reset this for technical difficulties for the people at home. But yeah, no, like I was talking specifically about like how like, and this might just be moving away from New Mexico, but like I can't tell you the last time I saw you, a white dude with dreadlocks and a Bard Molly t-shirt, just hanging around. I haven't seen one in years.
No.
I can see it being more rare out there. They happen here.
Yeah, but you guys were the progenitors though. You guys were like,
Yeah, it's true.
you guys were
That's
the first
true.
ones there.
we kicked that door in and said, "Smoke it."
And then Balder just became an entire like smoking volcano, but instead of
Yeah.
volcanic ash, it was just weed smoke.
It's Boulder, by the way.
Okay,
You said
that's fine.
You said Balder.
Like Baldur's Gate?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, in fairness, like I'm not allowed to play another video game because if I try playing other video games, Emily's just like, "Why aren't you playing Baldur's Gate with me?"
Aw.
Cute.
The downsides of married life.
Oh,
Someone wanting to spend time with you.
Yeah.
Companionship.
Yeah, it's the worst. How dare I have somebody who genuinely loves me for who I am?
Lame.
Right? Like, fuck off with that. You gotta find somebody who is constantly trying to change you that you're not even actually in love with. That's what you gotta do.
Yeah.
You know, I
That's
did
called
that
healthy.
like almost like maybe like 12 years ago. Wasn't that great?
Yeah? All right.
Weird.
Because it's been working wonders for me.
It's happening.
There we go. Now we're getting almost as depressing as the last intro.
Nice. Right on track. We're
Yeah.
doing great.
So good.
Alrighty. Well, anyways, I am here with that Seth 23 and the Raccoonaloon herself, Brie. We all get together every other week to kind of just catch up, hang out, talk about nerdy stuff that we like, and more or less just try to, deal with the horrible reality that is everyday life, which I feel like is most people at this point.
Yep.
So, anyways, moving into our first topic, which is this week's homework assignment, is X-Men 97. So, X-Men 97 is the continuation of the 90s cartoon from X-Men and at Marvel Studios, and it's kind of an interesting case study, to say the least, because they're continuing a piece of media that the current Marvel regime did not necessarily have any control or say over. They're trying to kind of continue with that on. There's kind of questions if this is the correct direction to go in. Marvel's kind of been a mess for the last, like, 5 years, I would say, at least since Endgame. Kind of.
A little bit more than kinda.
I was trying to be generous. But I think it is an interesting thing. It's been relatively well received by fans and some critics, but it's not without controversy, because, controversy is going to come with anything in the internet these days.
Mm-hmm.
They made it bi. How dare they?
That bi-coded ban? Crazy.
How dare people who never actually read the comics didn't understand that Gambit was bi?
Mm-hmm.
And the way he looks in that crop top is making me feel confused, and I don't like that, and it's Disney's fault. And
I wasn't confused whatsoever, to be completely honest. I knew exactly what was going on, and I was happy for everybody who was enjoying it.
It's a great crop top.
No, not to mention, so, we're obviously jumping right in right now, but, as
sorry,
far as,
I skipped away.
Perfect.
As far as, a crop top from the 90s and whoever would be wearing it, it's just, I feel like it's just, no, this is exactly on brand. I don't understand why anyone is upset right now.
Yeah, it's very in character. And also everyone should wear crop tops. I said that last time, I believe, but I'm I think crop tops, super cute. Hot take, I think tummies are adorable. All sorts of tummies. Let them out. Why not?
Yeah. I agree.
Yes. Free the tummy.
Free the tummy. This goes back to a weird, boob conversation that me and Seth have had about, TikTok and Instagram, and, how some people are getting away with showing things against terms of service. I've been seeing a bunch of people with fake baby dolls, using that as
You've been seeing that too?
Yes!
What is with that? It is the weirdest thing. Okay.
I triggered something in Seth, but you're gonna have to bear with us.
Absolutely.
It's just so weird. It'll come up on Explore, right? And it'll be surrounded by your normal things and a thirst trap, but it's a woman holding the most obvious baby doll you've ever seen. But sometimes it's the realest fucking thing, and you're like, is that a doll or is that an actual baby? And she is breastfeeding the doll. And because it's breastfeeding content, she's allowed to show full nip.
Yeah, it's educational.
Yeah, but it's a baby doll, and it's very sexual. It's weird. Yeah. These videos are so weird.
That is so
It's
weird.
one of those things, it's those things, there's been the advocation of, free the nipple on Instagram and stuff for a long time, which...
Absolutely free the nipple.
Yes.
Yeah. But, it comes with it's now, the change in terms of service has been co-opted in a way for people who are still very much trying to sexualize the nipple to get away with showing nipple. And, it just...
and then the addition of the baby thing. I'm being overtly sexual. I'm making breasts sexual in a way that they should not be thought of as sexual. You're staring at my breasts, being aroused by them while I'm pretending to feed a baby. That's weird. That's ucky.
This is why breeding kinks are the one thing where I'm just
I was saying
right.
This is a specific fetish, clearly. So.
we all need to kind of I feel like
as the only one here with a breeding kink, this is still weird. This is still
that's an assumption, Seth.
It sure is, Seth. Oh, we're right on the weird track. I'm so proud of us.
I like that the first time we recorded this, Brie got to start talking about X-Men, and this time England and I are just nah, we're doing
It's though.
Yeah. It's look, we went from crop tops to titties. There's just, an obvious
that was all you.
Line.
Look, I was thinking about Gambit's crop top, and then, my mind just went to places.
And that happens to everybody, I feel. That's what Gambit does, so.
Anyways. So, yeah. Going back to our original strategy for this show.
Boobs,
Brie,
yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts on how you feel about X-Men 97.
Sorry, did you say me? I will talk about it.
Yes.
So, X-Men. I I was a little concerned because like I watched the cartoon growing up, but like here and there, like not religiously by any means. Like I was like when I started 97, I was like, okay, do I need more context for this? And if anybody's wondering, you do not. This show's kind of batshit crazy, to be honest. Like I feel like it's got this like it is very of its time, and it's very much staying of its time in terms of like theming and transitions. Because like especially the last episode, episode 6, so much shit was happening. So I'm like, oh, there's like this demon guy, but also she's a goddess again. Also, her hair got long, and also this is happening over here. Like, you kind of just gotta ride the wave of it. But in general, I think it's really fucking good. And also the theme song and the opening that they kept almost identical to the original
Still
fucking slaps. That is an intro that I will never fucking skip. And it is, they updated it in such a great way while still maintaining like the feeling of the original. And I'm just like, this is how you do an adaptation. This is so phenomenal. But that's all I'm gonna say for now, outside of like Gambit being Gambit and wearing crop tops, upsetting everyone. I do want to talk about episode 5, but I that might be a bigger discussion, so I'll give the floor to Seth.
We'll get into that. So Seth, go ahead and give me your initial thoughts.
So similar thing. I watched the show as a kid, but not super religiously. I liked it. Haven't seen it since I was a child. This I already knew. People had told me like you can just jump in. It's whatever. So I just did.
Don't worry about it.
I loved how well they were able to keep, like Brie said, the tone and feel of the '90s show. And it's like, oh yeah, it felt like slipping right back into it, even though I hadn't seen it since I was a child. One thing I did notice though is that since the animation at times is holding so tightly to the like look and feel of the '90s, when you would go into like the action sequences and these like beautiful moments that look like they're straight out of anime, it clashed a little. It made the other moments look cheaper, and I wish they had like done a little better with the animation and dialogue scenes. Other than that, it's great. It's really good. Like, I don't have anything else to say about it until we start like talking more in detail.
Yeah. So, I'll say the exact same thing. You know, I remember coming home every day from school, and this was just the thing that happened to be on the TV. It was the only thing that was like on like Fox at the time, which was the only channel showing cartoons that you can get. And so like, you know, I remember like kind of most of the things, and in a little bit of contrast to that, I actually did start going back and watching some of the old 90s cartoon, and it does obviously still stick to that basic animation style, but like you go back and watch that, it's just like, wow, this is very rudimentary animation, to say the least.
Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna say that the original show hold up, but like especially like when I was recommending it was just like, don't worry about like jumping into this without watching the previous one, because even the original show was just like, hey, you kind of already need to know who the X-Men are before you start watching this show.
He's got eyes that punch you. It's fine. You get it.
But it's interesting though, because the thing that like I caught on to once like going back to the original show was just like, oh, these are all just like original X-Men comics like arcs. They're just condensed to like 1 or 2 episodes. Whereas like I feel like we've gotten so used to like things being dragged out for such a long time, where it's just like, oh, they did like Days of Future Past in like 20 minutes as opposed to like reading 30 issues of comics.
Yeah. They did Dark Phoenix in 3 issues instead of having to read 10 years of comics.
Exactly. And that's kind of the thing. And so like I was actually really appreciative of it, because it gave me like a refresher on like X-Men lore going back to like the original 90s cartoon, because they do like the whole like, oh, the reason Rogue can fly and have super strength is because she took Miss Marvel's powers.
Yeah.
Like that's something that some people may not realize. Or like they do an entire kind of arc specifically like explaining, you know, like why is Wolverine like the way he is, and then they go over the Alpha Flight in Canada Weapon X stuff that he was going through. Like there are all of these arcs that they do, and it's like really the like first season is a little weird because they do an arc where they go to Genosha and get basically put into a labor camp, and then there's all these like old X-Men and X-Men villains like basically also working as laborers, and they're also in all of their original costumes, and you're just like, so wait, why is Sunfire and Mystique and all these people just like working in this labor camp, and they never explain it?
Just deal with it. They're here now.
Which is funny because they're actually almost using morph now in the same way, where it's just like,
I was gonna
Lady
say,
Deathstrike breaks into a room during a riot, and it's just like, where the fuck did Lady Deathstrike come from? And then it's like, oh, it's morph.
that was something I noticed with Morph. I was like, oh, this is their way to have other X-Men show up without having
He's
to
like,
write
he's
for
a
20
baked-in
characters.
Easter egg, is basically all he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which is fun.
But, like,
I like that.
It's fun,
Yeah.
but it's also just very like when you go in knowing these things, it's jarring. But when you're like a little bit like separated from it, it's just like, yeah, it's a fun little thing.
Yeah.
It's like, who is Morph supposed to be here? But no, I think the show's been really, really good. They've matched the tone, and they've matched the thing where it's just like they're following classic X-Men arcs. Like, these are all arcs that have happened in the comics. And I feel like the reason why the original 90s cartoon was so, welly beloved by fans, and what this series is doing right, is that it is being very faithful to the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Which is not something we've really had in a long time when it comes to adaptation.
Just so weird. Because it's like Marvel used to be like praised. Like, they're doing that story. And then it would come out and everyone would be like, well, they kind of did that story.
Sort of.
Yeah. I mean, when you consider that, like, Civil War was one movie, and, like, they really condensed how impactful that arc was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But instead, they basically turned just like, holy shit, they introduced Spider-Man.
Yep.
But yeah, so no, I'm relatively happy. Obviously, as Brie kind of pointed out, it's not without its controversies, but I feel like most of the people who are upset about a lot of stuff can kind of just go get fucked for the most part.
Yeah.
Like, being upset about Gambit wearing a crop top is not. It's not worth having a conversation over.
Yeah, when he's been like the most queer-coded X-Men for literally since he started. Like, he's always been real
especially
queer.
when you consider, like, in X-Men comics, like, Jean, Wolverine, and Scott currently in the comics are in a polycule.
Love that for them. Very modern.
Which they're definitely implying that that's where the direction is heading in the show, too. So, like, they're staying on brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like, look, if you say you don't know anything about these characters, just say it out loud.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And again, circling back, crop tops for everybody. I don't know if you saw Babs Tarr. She did a
no,
yeah,
I know exactly
the
what
crop top with Gambit that just says "slut" on it, and I'm just like, make that canon, make that canon.
I actually wanted to buy that sticker pack for M.
Oh, it's so good.
I will say, watching the show with M around has been kind of hard because she does not care about the X-Men whatsoever.
Mm.
And so, literally, anytime it's on and we're having conversations, she's just talking about how much she hates Jean Grey.
That's fair.
Fair. And just, like, all the other things. And so, talking about one of the things that, Brie, you brought up, episode 5, which has been probably the most impactful thing. She was being a little trash-talky throughout the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
To where eventually I had to turn over to her and just be like, you need to stop.
You're like, babe, I love you.
Please tell Em that I have also gotten the, like, hey, if we're gonna watch this together, I need you to shut up. Like, I've gotten that. So she's in welcome company.
Look, anybody who's ever been in a relationship or tried introducing anybody to a new piece of media, that's going to be a thing that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But it literally was one of the things, like, look, I know, like, normally we have this kind of, like, fun little banter about certain things, and, like, let's be fair, X-Men, very rife with things that we can make fun of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, as far as, like, Marvel properties, they've done a lot of dumb things. Like, episode 5 was not the time to be making the jokes.
No, not episode 5. I'm like, episode 4, by the way, which, are we ready? Are we ready to talk about episode 5? Is that
I do have a joke that I can piggyback off real quick. The we all hate Jean Grey comment. is that I could tell which one was the clone because I liked the clone better.
Yes.
Even that stuck out as the original Jean Grey sucks.
I was actually super excited that they were doing Madeline Pryor when like they introduced like the clone thing, because I was just like, yes.
And they just did it. It just happened, and then it's over.
Exactly. That goes back to the whole thing. It's like, we're gonna do a whole like what was like 3 years of comic book arc in like 20 minutes.
Yes, like showing that this show is for bisexuals, like that was the other half of that. Like Gambit, so hot, we love him, and then Goblin Queen saying, "Say my name, Scott." I was like, okay, yes, mommy.
Like I was about to say, like, look, I know I have a type, but like I even had to turn to Emily, and she was just like, oh, so this is what you're into, the redheaded goth girl dressed this way. And I was just like, yes.
Who isn't
I
into
told
that?
I was just like, you knew this. This was advertised. You were aware.
Oh my goodness.
But episode 5,
Episode
heartbreaking.
5. I will say, which I think it was so funny because I came home from work and my partner's like, "Hey, the new X-Men came out. You gotta watch it," and with no context. And I was like, "Oh boy, I just had a rough day at work. I can't wait to settle into this episode." Especially
And he was just, oh honey.
yeah, I think and good on him. He did not warn me of anything. Especially because we had just been talking about, like, I don't want to say I was disappointed in episode 4, but episode 4 was like the least impactful episode. Like it almost felt like a filler episode to me. It was the video game one with Jubilee.
Yeah.
And it wasn't again not a bad episode. It just not a lot happens. Like it really doesn't do anything for the plot. It was just like,
it was
this
fan
villain.
service. Anybody,
Yes.
it was basically made for the people who like remember playing the arcade game back in the day.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
And
That,
like
that is specifically what that episode was for.
yes, and I played that game. In fact, there's an arcade by me where, you don't have to put quarters in, so you can actually like sit there and play the whole thing, which I did last time I was there, which was so cool. But that nostalgia hits me for like 5 minutes, and I was like, I could have done without this episode, because episode 4 was such a light episode thematically. Hopping into episode 5, where it's just like, oh, haha, a little bit of political intrigue, a little bit of romance, a little bit of will they, won't they, and then fucking devastation. It was such a goddamn gut punch. I posted on my Instagram too. I was like, I sat in my chair right here and just sobbed for like probably 20 minutes because I was just like, what just happened?
Were you just like, fuck you, Aaron?
I was like, fuck you, everyone. Because I was like, my boy, Gambit.
They massacred my boy.
Well, and then the final line of "I can't feel you," and I'm just like, oh my God, that fucking destroyed me. I'm just like, I know, and my boyfriend's like, oh yeah, isn't that crazy? She could touch him for the first time and can't feel him. I'm like, I know.
You're sobbing and heartbroken, and he's like, "Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that funny?"
Still, like,
He's just twisting that knife, just like,
yeah.
So Brie had like basically the similar conversation that like basically me and Emily had, where she was like making jokes, and I was just like, not the time.
like, I'm fucked up right now. I need a minute.
I think Emily like specifically talked about it. It's just like, it's X-Men, like they kill people all the time. He'll be back. I was just like, we don't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is its own universe.
Yeah. I know I've definitely seen some people online theorizing that like Cable's gonna do like time stream, like reset type stuff, which that's still a possibility. I'm not gonna rule it out.
Sure.
Yeah.
I do appreciate that if that is what they're going to do, that they didn't take the next episode to do that.
Correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That being said, the episode following up was like the most like, the fuck is this?
Yes, it was all over the goddamn place, which was okay for me emotionally.
You needed a palate cleanser.
I really
at that point.
did. But
I was just annoyed at the specifically in the most recent episode, where it's just kind of like, hi, the entire like setup for this entire show was the fact that like Charles Xavier is gone, and like we're now having to deal with like post roll. It's just like, oh, actually he's just out in space fucking his girlfriend. That's basically all that's happening. And I'm just like, God, like Charles Xavier is literally the king of the fuckboys, isn't he?
Well, that's But it's also a real boomer move to bail out on your kids and like go
For
find
some
a
hot
trophy
space
wife.
lady.
Yeah, you
We've
gotta
all
get
been
the
there.
robot legs.
Look, I'm not saying I don't get it. I'm just saying, like, really, buddy, like, read the room. So yeah, that was kind of fun. But I am enjoying the fact that we are getting Cyclops' like radicalization arc, where he's becoming less Boy Scout and more like, hey, maybe fuck you guys.
Yeah.
I've been busting my ass my whole life to like, you know,
My eyes punch people and no one respects me.
Mhm.
yeah.
That's
So
the
maybe
third
I'm
time
just
I've
gonna
made that joke, and at some point it's gonna be funny. I
and
promise.
now I'm going to make my eyes punch people who deserve it,
Yeah.
which is all of you.
Mhm.
So yeah, any other final thoughts about X-Men at this point?
When they were in the video game universe, why sometimes did it look like the normal universe, sometimes look like the arcade, but with the modern characters in it, and sometimes just look like the arcade game?
Bad production planning.
All right.
Good. Great. I do want to mention, this is just like a small side note, and maybe there's an explanation for this, or this is just like the 90s like pacing of thing. I think it's so interesting. After like the Goblin Queen decided to not be the Goblin Queen anymore, she's like, don't call me Jean, call me Madeline Pryor. I was like, where'd you come up with that? You just came up with a full ass name just on the spot and nobody fucking questioned it. I was like, where did you, that's a specific name.
You don't spend large percentages of your day thinking about like what you would change your name to?
No, I already did it.
Oh.
How did she become Raccoonaloon?
Fair.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the canon like reasoning behind the name change was, to be completely honest.
She Kaiser Sosate it. I can't
Yeah,
figure the rest of that bit.
I
but-
mean, I'm okay with that. You know, I'm kind of curious. Again, like, it does seem that they're going to continue along the line arc of just, like, Scott Summers realized that the only person he's ever slept with is now 2 people, and so now he's gonna go on his fuckboy arc. So he's gonna bang Emma Frost, and then bang Jean again, and then bang Wolverine and Jean at the same time, and then we're all just gonna have a fun time.
You just go to therapy, man.
Well, Jean
Also
has to,
fashion.
Jean still has to die like 3 more times before we get
Oh,
to
okay.
that part of the arc.
Before he finally does it. Before he finally this fucking.
Yeah. So yeah, that's more or less how X-Men logic works. So
Absolutely. It was interesting. I just like, I don't know. I just, again, that's a very specific name. I just wish there would have been like, you know, she's looking around the room and she's like, Madeline Pryor. So just,
Yeah.
you know, like,
That
just
would've been
weird
better.
that got pieced together. And then again, nobody questioned it. I was like, okay, bye, Madeline, I guess. See you later.
See you around.
I do find it funny. It's just like, hey, this character is basically just Jean Grey with just like slightly different like specs, like slight divergence, but you already like her more than Jean Grey.
Yeah, just a little hotter, in my
Well,
opinion.
I mean, the Goblin Queen stuff is
That's
doing a
fashion
lot of heavy
sense.
lifting right there.
Hotter.
Yes. Also, Goblin Queen is a hilarious name. I did forget this
Yeah,
about, like,
where did that
X-Men,
name come from, too?
I don't
Like-
remember again. Like, I'm trying to like think back to my dumb like encyclopedic like Marvel X-Men encyclopedia brain. I'm just like, as far as I know, it was just because like afterwards she just spent a bunch of time in like the astral plane and like basically recruited a bunch of goblins. But the show like condensed that to like again 20 minutes.
she's like, hey, I'm the Goblin Queen. They're like, oh, okay.
What the fuck does that mean?
Okay.
I was like,
Are you a goblin?
I was like, hey, I'm the Goblin Queen. Look at my titties in this skimpy dress.
I know. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll do
Yeah, I
that.
mean, like, all right, cool, fine. Logic,
Yes,
logic
mommy, it's fine.
accepted.
Yeah. When she did say I'm the Goblin Queen, my thought process was like, boy, it's hard to come up with a new superhero title, isn't it? Like, all the names are
Fine.
taken.
Yeah,
He's
I
a
mean,
random generator. I get it.
I mean,
Yeah.
in fairness, like if they didn't do that, there would have been nerd people upset about it. But also at the same time, it's like I feel like this is one thing you could have adapted and changed, just slightly.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Also, like, we joked about a lot of the controversies, but I don't think we actually talked directly to the controversies that have been happening around this show. Do you care to? Or, like, because they're pretty stupid.
I only knew about the crop top thing.
I was about to say we've talked about the Gambit one ad nauseum. I don't know if there's any. Maybe I'm just
I don't
not
think I'm
like
nauseous by how we've talked about Gambit, but like,
but maybe I'm just not as attuned to like the certain other people who are upset about certain other things about the show to like really be aware of them at this point. Maybe that's the thing where I'm at.
Are you
Brie,
saying that I'm getting red pilled if they're showing up on my For You page?
Probably.
This is a me problem.
Probably. Brie, is there any like other controversies that you're aware of? Like,
I don't think so. I know I unfortunately don't know a lot about this, but I know there was like a writer that was fired very like close to the release of the show, but I don't know anything about why that happened. So
yeah,
I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, I don't think there's been any official information on why he was fired. I would assume if there's again, if they don't give a reason, it means there's stuff behind the scenes that they don't want us to know.
Right.
Sure.
Like, obviously, and he was fired before the show even started coming out, so it's not based on the reception of the show.
No, certainly not. I will say I want to make this is a very small note, and this is only because I used to speak fluent French. But Gambit, I don't know if they didn't research this well or if it's just a small like note here. There is a phrase that Gambit uses. I know he says my dear all the time, but he says in one episode, cherche la femme, which is I'm looking for my wife. And I had asked my partner at the time, and I said, hey, are they married? But apparently not. But he does call her his wife in a couple times because la femme is a very old school way, but is a old school way of saying wife. So I'm like, I thought that was kind of interesting. Or they didn't do the research and didn't realize that la femme doesn't mean my woman, it means my wife. So
I'm gonna give some leeway because they're also going off of Cajun French and not like classical French, so maybe there's some translation there, but I don't know that for certain. So
maybe. But like the idea of it being romantic and this like attention to detail thing is beautiful. It was 100% just because somebody was translating it. It was like, all right, that's good enough. Let's get this.
Yeah, no,
probably.
You're absolutely correct, Seth. I was just gonna chalk it up to just Gambit being a fuckboy and just leaving it at that.
But it does work with his character to do it that way. He's very like
absolutely like it's classical. To me it's not jarring
He's a
enough.
Man out of time and life now.
Yeah, hopeless romantic more than anything else.
Yes.
Like he has the swagger to get with literally anybody. Who does he go after? The one person who can't physically touch him.
Yes,
which makes sense from a psychological level. That's why these characters are good. It's because everything they do makes sense.
Yeah, which again makes episode 5 all the more tragic because, she was going to choose him. That was the plan. Because, man, I was mad about that. I was like, Magneto? He's old as hell.
Yeah.
Who cares if you can fuck?
I mean, Rogue's entire storyline and base is about how she has been groomed by elder people and her constantly looking for acceptance from people who are looked as authority figures, and Gambit was the first person who's been no, I have no power over you. I'm not trying to influence you. I just love you for who you are.
I'm gonna cry all over again. Our boy.
In this episode, we make Brie cry.
Yes, I will say Magneto dying was pretty sad too, especially him saying in German, "Don't be afraid," and then just all of them died at once. That was part 1 where I was starting to tear up, and then Gambit died. I was like, oh god.
I don't know if it was anything else, but I completely missed on the first viewing that Magneto had died. But I think it's also because they did it in such a way where it's just they leave again. They don't show you a body or anything else. So
there's a lot of speculation that he's not dead because they're talking so much about Gambit's death, and nobody has said anything about Magneto's death.
They're leaving it open to interpretation, and so they had the room to. He's not dead. He survived the thing.
Yes. We saw Gambit's body, unfortunately.
Comic book logic.
Devastating. So good. Well, and I will say, and I'm going to just touch on this very, very briefly, because obviously it's pretty touchy. I think also just given what's going on in the world right now, I think it made that episode hit substantially harder for me. Because, it was a cool little genocide that happened in that episode. And just, again, everything going on in the world, I think I was that much more emotional about it. Because I was like, wow, this is, which I believe was very intentional. By the the showrunners, it was painful.
Yeah,
And
no, I picked
that's
up
always
on
been
that.
a theme of the X-Men, or less than anything.
Yeah.
Magneto obviously is a character who's like a Holocaust survivor,
Hmm.
and a lot of his radicalization comes from that. And then it's always kind of been the conversation kind of around there. And like Magneto's always been kind of an interesting character because like you talk about like he has that arc of like I am so anti-fascist that I become fascist, which is relevant to what's going on in the world.
Yes.
And then also kind of goes along where it's just like, look, at like some point we need to kind of just, can we all just stop pretending that we haven't all been fucking each other this entire time and causing problems for each other when we can just basically like accept the fact that like, look, we have this world, we're sharing it, we all need to learn how to get along.
But
Oh,
I've been
absolutely.
spending a lot on military budgets, and I gotta show that shit off, right?
Really?
Like,
What did you just
was
do?
that?
Military budgets. Seth
Military
approves.
budgets.
You heard it here first.
Where did that come from? What?
Wait, I was about to say, was that from the soundboard that you were
I
messing
know
with
I
earlier?
didn't click anything. If you're not watching the video of this, a big old thumbs up and a bubble just appeared on my screen. I think it was Brie's fault. I don't know what she did.
Do not look lot.
We are not establishing a precedent where something is Bree's fault. We are not doing that, Seth.
Why did a thumbs up appear when I said military budgets?
Military budgets! We need
You
those
are
F-15
fake.
Raptors going and bombing places in the Middle East.
That was weird.
That was very funny timing. One last thing I wanted to mention really quick, just because I wrote this quote down, because this is very thematic. So it's just like when they mentioned making Magneto the leader of Genosha, someone said most other nations don't allow a terrorist to be their leader, and his response was, "Yet so many allow their leaders to be terrorists." And I was like,
that was a banger line.
Yeah,
snaps.
that was definitely banger line. I've definitely seen that one pop up on my social media a couple of times, and like it was a good line.
Not subtle, but it's exactly true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know
Sorry.
that's the exact thing to go for, especially with Magneto as a character, because we've seen him have multiple arcs throughout, and like we're now supposed to be seeing him at his like, hey, I'm trying to kind of tamper down my more violent impulses and like be better. Maybe you guys could do the same. Just throwing it out there, guys.
Maybe.
Also, if you say no, I'm just gonna drop you. Like, we're up here in the atmosphere.
He's just like, I'm still being cool, and yet you guys are still sending giant fucking robots. By the way, if you guys ever do go back and watch the original 90s cartoon, the Sentinels are the stupidest fucking thing
Yeah.
they've ever created. It's like, hey, we need you to go round up these mutants that have registered with us, like, kind of thing. It's just like, oh, sure, we're just gonna send a 3-story tall fucking robot to just fucking pluck you out of your room in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
No one's gonna fucking notice that.
No.
That's a trend, though. I feel like I think we constantly spend a ton of military budget on giant things like that don't usually work. So I feel like
It's
would
true.
happen.
Yeah.
There have been military planes going over me every day that I've taken my dog for a walk for the past month, and I just am used to it now. If I saw a 30-foot robot flying in the sky, I think I'd just be like, all right.
Just a purple, like, and pink fucking robot just decide to just punch a house and grab a teenager out of it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you know,
That's
whatever.
probably something to do with Epstein. Like, it's fine.
I would not. Yeah, I'd be like, oh, I didn't know my neighbor was a mutant. Weird.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Oh, okay.
I was just like, oh yeah, that robot just decided to tear apart them all
well,
just to
it's
find
Tuesday,
one
I guess.
teenager hanging out in an arcade in the 90s. Okay, yeah, cool.
So clearly we've discovered that mutant is my line where my allyship just ends. Like,
As soon as there's
That's
a
the line.
mutation.
you got powers. Hey, robots. Whatever. I got other shit. I got.
Gotta pay my bills. I don't have to tell you.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
All right. Well,
Hey, I can
Speaking-
get you an opening at my job if I tell them such and such is a robot or a mutant, whatever. What?
Yeah,
I I'm going to assume this has something with you like being on an iPhone.
Maybe.
Wait, hang on. I was about to say. Okay, never mind. I thought it was gonna be like you holding up a thumbs up, like triggers a thumbs up emoji.
But yeah, that didn't. Why does?
What is it? Is it just when you talk about military and like bigotry?
I guess.
It says yeah.
It's like a lie detector test that
no
just tells
idea.
us how Seth really feels.
This is so weird. I have
That's
I don't know
hilarious.
what I clipped more.
All right,
Yeah, I don't
well,
know. I'm not seeing anything that would like.
Seth is trying to figure out why he loves mutants basically all dying and whatnot. We could talk about another mutant thing going on, which is the new Fallout show. Seth, I know you've spent some time watching it. I have not taken the time whatsoever, but it's relatively getting good reviews right now, and it's kind of begging the question of, have movie and TV studios figured out how to actually make good video game adaptations?
It would seem like we've had a couple hits recently, right? The Last of Us was good. People liked Mario. I couldn't finish it. But like, this was fine. Like, I'm not really a fan of the Fallout series.
Yeah.
This was fine. But I see why people who like Fallout love this. So yeah, we've been having some hits recently, and it does kind of seem like Hollywood's figured out how to do this. But we did have a new Resident Evil within the last couple of years, and that thing bombed, and people hated that. So I think it depends more on the property than just video game.
I think that's fair, but I also think, one, Capcom is Capcom, and they're Capcom.
Yeah.
Lack of a better word. But the thing that's kind of like the line, because I think the two examples that have been talked about specifically have been The Last of Us and now this Fallout thing. The studios involved in creating these things have been directly involved.
Yeah.
Where they're actually, giving story beats and putting in feedback and like giving the things, as opposed to just kind of be like, hey, screenwriter who has never written anything significant, here's this video game adaptation, write a thing for it, not knowing anything about it, and then we get like all the other like crap video game media that we've ever had.
Yeah. I mean, video game is a hard genre to adapt when you're going off of this thing basically has no story, and that's what it was for a long time.
Yeah, and I've argued multiple times where it's just kind of like, and I still feel this way, like, I'm, like, one, I was never that attached to Fallout, but I've also had the feeling of just like, okay, why do we need a Fallout TV show?
Mm-hmm.
That's fair.
Same thing happened with The Last of Us. Like, it's just like, couldn't you just play The Last of Us? Do you really need a TV show for it?
I think one thing that The Last of Us show did do is that there are things that are different from the game. Like, that's how adaptation works. But I'm talking about specifically about Frank and Bill. And, like, that was completely different than it is in the game and was so much better. And, like, I think that there are some things you can do better in storytelling in cinema and with like television and movies than you can in a video game where it's so linear and you're experiencing it from one character's perspective alone. However, I lost where I was going with that, and nobody was jumping in. Everyone was just nodding their heads in agreement with me. And I think
the point is just like there was room to make changes, right?
There was. Oh, I think that's my point. Is that like, there's a lot of really good stories in video games, and because so many of them are set up for that firsthand interaction, it can be hard to have those adaptations, and you have that thought of why even do Fallout when the game is set around, it's an open world, you get to experience this however. But I think at the same time you can set a story in that universe and have it work. And I think that's this show did it.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, especially since we've gotten so many more open world style games like Fallout and many things where it's just like, if you really think about it, most of the lore in these worlds are experienced through books and like locations and like conversations with other people that you find, but like you don't ever actually experience that lore. It's all kind of just it's word of mouth and legend and like stuff that's written, but you don't actually get to experience it. And there's at least an opportunity there to like, hey, we can explore this in such a way where it's just like we can make some changes because just because it was written like on a piece of paper or just because somebody told you this one thing, it could still have happened a completely different way.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily ruin the whole story, but it has to be done in a specific way. I don't necessarily think that like we should just now have a gold rush for like everybody take every video game property and make a movie off of it. I am never going to advocate for that. I am actually kind of very anti like stop making live action movies of things we don't need live action movies for.
Sound a little like Alan Moore there, Aaron.
Look, if that's the arc that I am at my life, that's the arc that I am. I'm wearing the chain and the thing, and like
have you started writing your million-word novel that's going to end the world?
I mean, I've been doing that since I was at least 16, so like it's going to come out eventually.
But you're a very slow writer.
Are you Alan Moore, actually?
Well, yeah. I grew up with dyslexia, Seth. Of course, I'm a slow writer. You realize how much I have to pay just for proofreaders?
But you don't just dictate everything to your phone like I do?
Oh, because that's gonna make a fucking grammatically correct story.
Oh my goodness.
But no, like here's the thing, like I'm all for us like trying to like adapt certain things, but it's just one of those things where it's just like there's certain things that I'm just like, who asked for this? I think what was it? The Uncharted movie was just like
well, yeah.
The Uncharted movie was very specifically, it's just like, why the fuck do we need an Uncharted movie?
Yeah.
With Tom Holland. And the guy who chose to not stop 9/11. He said he could have, but chose not to, Mark Wahlberg. That's...
Good. Perfect.
He also committed a bunch of hate crimes in the 90s. We can't forget that.
I mean, who didn't?
Marky Mark. He owns a burger stand, hot dogs. What is it? Wall
burgers.
Okay.
But yeah, so Brie, I'm assuming you haven't watched the Fallout series yet.
I haven't. I've never had a strong association with like Fallout at all. I bought Fallout 4 because it seemed fun. And I played it for 15 minutes, and I was like, "This is fun," and then I never picked it up again. So.
That is what I did with Fallout 4. It was on Game Pass, so like I downloaded it and started playing it, but like never got anywhere. I played Fallout 3 like way back in the day, and like this was like at the stage where I was just like I was not built for open world sandbox type games. And like this is also in the time where it's just like you're gonna spend a lot of time doing absolutely nothing.
Yes.
Or
and getting your dick kicked in by random shit.
Yeah, or like you're just like walking in the middle of the road and just all of a sudden things start shooting at you, or like you get attacked by wolves and like there's no progression to the story when you're doing those things. And so that kind of just turned me off from the genre. So like I don't have a strong like affiliation with Fallout, which is the main reason I haven't tried to like jump in and play it or watch the new Amazon show.
Yeah, I might give it a shot. And honestly, I feel like both of you kind of covered this, but I'm like, I don't really know what the change is in terms of like some of these video game adaptations have been good. And to me, it sounds like it's just like, I don't know. Yeah, they're in better hands, better production. I do think especially The Last of Us is like very interesting because depending on the timing of that could have gone very badly, especially just like, you know, post-pandemic as it were. I know most people, myself included, don't really like consuming that kind of media anymore because it's just we lived it and we're so good with that. So it's interesting that was as successful as it was, but I think it was also it was in good hands, really good casting. Pedro Pascal is red hot at the time, so it's just kind of like okay, like it was a perfect storm, and I don't know if they could recreate that. That kind of just might have been literally the exact right time. So
That's fair.
That actually jumps into a future topic, which I can skip over to right now. Me and Emily are talking about starting our own podcast separate from this, actually. And one of the things she wanted to talk about is she wanted us to listen to the full cast audiobook of World War Z.
Mm.
And rereading and re-experiencing that book after COVID, completely fucking different experience.
Mm-hmm.
I can see
Especially that first third of the book, you're just sitting, it's just like, yeah, that happened. That happened. That happened.
I read The Stand for the first time. Didn't know anything about it other than it was Stephen King's Apocalypse. I read it. It's a virus, by the way. February of 2020.
Ooh.
I was finishing the book as we were going into quarantine.
Oof.
So that was fun.
Yeah. So yeah, me and Emily are recording that podcast tomorrow, actually. So
Nice.
the plan is to have it alternate with that show, but that's a personal project we're working out. But yeah, like specifically talking about consuming that style of media at that sort of time, especially that we're like post-COVID.
Yeah.
Going back and looking at some of those like zombie and viral pandemic style like content, it's a lot differently than it used to. Because back then it was all just hypothetical.
Yeah, absolutely. That could never happen, which is why it was like fun to watch. And yeah, I think that's going to be a very interesting turn, just like in media in general, in the next couple of years. Because I fully believe that like most of us have not processed that trauma at all.
No.
And in fact, when people like talk to me about it, I'm just like, I don't know what I did. I don't remember, and I think I'm purposely blocking that information because I lost my job like mid 2020, so I was unemployed for like a year during that time, and then I was working, my studio got shut down, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, one day that's gonna come like a fucking wave for I think a lot of us, and it's gonna be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, well,
it's all sitting in a closet in your mind palace, and someday you'll find the key. But right now,
we're also still suffering the consequences from it in a lot of different ways, economically, culturally, just in so many different facets that like we haven't really had time to process. And it was interesting because I remember when it was first going on, a lot of people were looking back at like the Spanish flu from like the 1920s that was happening. And like there was a lot of cases where it's just like they were dealing with the exact same things where, you know, you had people who didn't believe certain things that, you know, health officials were saying, and like refusals to do all this kind of stuff, and like getting information and people having conflicting information. It's just like,
people
you know, it's one of those things where it's just like at some point where it's just kind of like, even if we do process what happened, did we learn any of the lessons we were supposed to learn from it?
Definitely not.
No.
I did not learn shit that year. It's blocked. I know I played video game, some, but yeah, it's gone, dude. Movies that I saw that year, deleted. Everything's just gone.
Yeah, I still don't know what I did. And I will say, like, I think in general, people have not learned anything. I just had 2 instructors that were, they're like, oh yeah, I'm sick today, but I'm still here. And I was like, and you're not, okay, no, that's cool. Cause that means like, I'm going to get sick too, but like, fuck me, I guess. I wear a mask if I'm sick now. I thought that was going to change, but does not.
I mean, I've been seeing an uptick in mask wearing recently in like public sectors. Like I'm seeing more people wearing masks at the grocery store and just like randomly out in public, where it's just like, you know, we hit like, you know, where nobody was wearing masks anymore. It was just kind of like we're all pretending like nothing ever happened. And I guess there's been like an uptick in cases, but it's not like obviously at the level that it was. And like,
well, and you know, people are vaccinated.
Yeah, well, half of us are.
Yeah. I wear my mask for travel, especially because I feel like every time I'm on a plane, everyone's coughing their goddamn heads off. So I'm just like, and I'll get some mystery illness.
I almost feel bad when I'm like, because like I did travel recently, and it was one of those things where it's just like I got like allergies, and it's just like I'm trying to like just cover my face with my shirt just to make sure that like, and like I do that anytime I'm out in public now. Whereas like before, I was just like, if I had to sneeze, I was just gonna sneeze.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like,
right. I would sneeze right in the nearest infant's
yeah,
mouth.
and like now I'm like covering
Turn it
and
sad.
like putting my arm here and like just making sure it's just like, look, it's like I'm doing the best I can to make sure it doesn't get on anybody or anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, like
I carry hand sanitizer for like that exact reason. Where like,
no, like,
oh, I touched
like,
some stuff. Oh no, and I never used to carry hand sanitizer.
there are times where I literally just go to the restroom just to wash my hands.
Absolutely, I wash my hands fucking constantly now.
Like it's like just because like it's just like I haven't washed my hands in a little while. Like you know I don't think I've done anything, but like let me just go clean these off.
Yeah, let me just get a little thing off.
Absolutely.
Yep. Anyway,
I
so
see World War Z being an interesting read and listen through.
Yeah. I mean, it's really great listening to the audiobook with like, you know, it's a full cast audiobook, so every like character has distinct voices. It has Mark Hamill and Henry Rollins and a couple of other like recognizable people. It's really weird because it's again, when you remember that this was a book that was written in 2004.
Yeah.
And thinking about like how it relates to like the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty nuts.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah. And like we went to Max Brooks's panel at Denver Comic Con all those years ago.
We did.
And,
we met Max.
Yeah, and that was a weird one because like one, I didn't realize it was Mel Brooks's son. We were there.
Didn't?
No, I didn't. So when he asked the Spaceballs to come on stage, I was just like, that's weird. I don't understand why he did that. And then like he starts talking about his dad.
Yeah.
And it clicks. I'm just like, oh shit.
Oh.
I remember he was doing a signing at his panel, and we were shooting like B-roll or something, and we just happened to be at not the panel, at his
signing booth. Yeah. Yeah, because he was promoting Harlem Hellfighters for that one.
Yeah. And we're just like wrapping up a shot right as he's walking up behind us to like get ready for his like meet and greet signing, and we just like hung out and chatted with him for a minute while people got in line.
He was super cool, like great guy. Like
yeah, it was really
again,
chill.
But the thing I took away was just like, especially being at his panel, is like really funny because like he's talking about growing up with his dad, and like, you know, we all know Mel Brooks as like, you know, the comedic, you know, personality that he was and like what he did for cinema and comedy specifically. But he's talking about, it's just like, oh, I got the World War I veteran.
Yeah.
I got the guy who was like teaching me how to like, you know, stuff my shoes with certain things and keep me from getting dysentery. While you guys were just laughing at like Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles.
History of the World Part 1.
Yep. Oh, that's a great one.
I don't know. I've got Young Frankenstein over here.
We'll have to do that for a homework assignment one of these days.
Yeah. Mel Brooks fun.
Absolutely. So, anyways, kind of going into now the part that I wanted to split off on from Fallout. This is something we kind of talked about recently. Last week you talked about Seth getting to your old playthrough of Portal.
Yeah.
What is it with us constantly going back to old video games and trying to play new video games?
I don't know. I'm not that big of a gamer. No, but it is interesting. I was thinking at this time because I also put in Arkham City recently, and I was like, both of these games came out in 2011. That's 13 years ago, and I'm still playing them, just still enjoying them. I think a lot of it is comfort. A lot of people like going back to, and with the way more modern video games run, it's easier to play ones from 10, 15 years ago than it used to be. Whereas if I didn't have my Sega Genesis, well, doesn't matter if I have my copy of Sonic Pinball. You're just not playing it, Seth. Whereas now, like, I can get Portal on my Switch. I can get Arkham on my Switch. I don't know. I don't really have, like, anything wise to say here. I am so high.
I know you did 2 full dabs at the beginning of the show,
sure did.
and I've just basically watched you dissolve into your room with all of Bo's hair and his bald, basically.
I
just
know.
like
I gotta
sitting
clean
in
the carpet. I got lazy the past couple days. That's after a week. That's a week.
I believe it. I've seen Bo. I know what Bo hair looks like.
But I am so sorry. Yeah, I just came off a tolerance break too, so this stuff is hitting me extra hard.
No, honestly, I think what you said is perfect though, because I think that's why we do it. Like I'm playing Stardew Valley again. I will say partially because of the new update, but like I life is very exhausting all the fucking time. So it's just like, I don't know, sometimes I'm not really into like committing to a new piece of media or anything like that. Like so I think all of us, and again, this might be a leftover thing from pandemic times too. Like I just feel like I developed a lot more of a comfort games, comfort watches, and now I just repeat those. There are certain YouTube videos for me, there's certain video games for me that like when I'm just like I don't have enough brain power to do really anything, but I know how this thing works, so I'm gonna do this thing. So that's again, I'm playing. This is probably my fifth playthrough of Stardew Valley, and
Oh
I'm
wow.
having the time of my fucking life. It is so fun. It is so good. But it's yeah, I fucking played the game over and over again. I still haven't beat Baldur's Gate, so I think that's all there is to it. I think life's exhausting. Sometimes we just need a very simple. We just need to know how things go. We need to see it all.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that have happened. One, we've had a lot of like remakes and re-releases that have come out that allow you to like go back and scratch that itch and like have some quality of life improvements to like games where it's just like, I think we've all experienced the thing. We've gone back to an old game. It's just like, wow, I really enjoyed this like 10, 15 years ago. But I also think because like, when we first all met, like, and I went off to college, like, I didn't have a video game console anymore.
Oh no.
And like I just had like a rinky-dink laptop, so I didn't have a way to play video games like back in the day. So like I missed out on like 10 years almost of video games before I got back into it. And by the time I got back into it, like they had changed so much to where it's just like there's too much shit going on. Like
What does
like,
this button do?
not even that, but like like the world of like loot boxes and microtransactions, where it's just like the transition from when like mobile
You were
came
coming back in during a bad time.
exactly like I came back in at a time where like the mobile game like transactional style of things were now bleeding into AAA titles, and I'm just like, why the fuck is this here?
Just think about the money we can make off of you.
Yeah, but like, and that like turned me off. And so it's just like, no, I'm not gonna do this. I'm just gonna go back and play Mass Effect again because they just re-released the Legendary Edition and took all of that shit out, and I could just replay Mass Effect.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Oh, you're gonna bring back the Halo Master Chief Collection with all the original Halos with none of the crap that it's like. Okay, I'm gonna go back and play that now.
Yeah.
So like, I have no interest in playing newer video games because newer video games have all these crap in it.
I don't even know like the last time I've been excited for a new video game outside of like Baldur's Gate. Like I think especially at least for me, also like having a gaming PC now and having Steam, I have way bigger access to one, older games, and two, just like smaller indie games. So I'm just like, why would I play a AAA title and spend $60 on a game that I might not like, where I could spend like $4 on this indie title that, maybe it's only like 4 hours of gameplay, but like is super fun and chill, and I got to support a independent artist. So like
just
that's
like,
kind of where I go.
There's this game that I remember playing back like when I was younger, and like it's on Steam sale now for like $10.
Yeah,
it's not a problem. I don't know. It's just interesting to me, like how that industry has moved in a direction that has basically alienated people who grew up in a certain way of it.
Yeah.
To where now, like trying to like do something new is completely like blocked out.
Well, I remember getting to a certain point because I've always preferred single player experiences to online play. Online play doesn't really matter at all to me. But reaching a point in like my early 20s where I was like, oh, pretty much every video game now is just it's just meant for online play. It's very if it has a single player, it's very short because it's getting those lobbies, and I didn't like that. We have come out of that since, and there are a lot of great single-player games that are released. But, like, it gets really frustrating when the video game market is heavily favoring something I don't like, and I just want to chill and play a video game. It sucks when that happens.
Yeah, I will say it has seemed that, like, we've come out of that a little bit, and, like, a lot of single-player experiences have started to, like, really come into their own again.
Yeah.
Brie, obviously you keep up bringing Baldur's Gate.
Mm-hmm.
Basically that's like the first game Emily's played in a long time. She's played some other stuff, but like that was the first game that like she played first on her own, and now she's addicted to it. And I'm just like, I don't know if she's gonna play another video game ever again.
Right.
So much to the point where it's just like if I say like, hey, do you want to do our multiplayer playthrough? She gets super excited, and we dedicate the rest of our evening to playing Baldur's Gate together. It's fun, and it's great, and like it's very unfortunate that Larian like announced that they're not gonna do a Baldur's Gate 4. They're not gonna do DLC for it. They just said like, we're done with that. We're moving on to something else.
Oh wow.
I'm proud of them.
like,
I'm proud of them for saying it and doing it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got to respect that.
Because I have to.
You got to respect it.
I have to imagine that Wizards of the Coast came to them and would be like, "All right, how are we making more money off of this? Got to strike when the iron's hot. What's the DLC? When's the sequel? Let's go!" And they basically were just like, "We're out."
Yeah.
I'm just like, "Yep, respect the hell out of it."
Yeah. I mean, that game's pretty in depth. Like, I don't know if lightning could strike twice. Like with that, it's just like it's such a good game. So
well, when you consider that like the Baldur's Gate 2 and like it's like updates and re-releases like still are like almost like 15 years old, like that's the kind of game where it's just like, no, you can't just like come out with a sequel right at the gate. You got to let that thing cook.
You Skyrim this shit. Yeah, you release updates, you release DLC, and then you just keep releasing the same game for what?
Well,
14,
and their updates have been
years?
really good because they've been releasing new content for the game constantly.
Yeah.
Like they just announced that the next patch is actually going to introduce new evil endings.
Nice.
So if
That's
you're doing an
awesome.
evil playthrough, you're going to actually like experience new things, and like they updated like several other characters ending. They implemented a prologue like 6 months after launch. Like they've been adding content that they don't have to do.
That's nice.
So
that's pretty dope. I really hope. I know we talked about this, I think, last time about like Stardew Valley, where he just like dropped a huge update, and that game's 7 years old. I kind of hope that's more of the way things are going, because it's just like, hey, people want to invest. Games are expensive, so if I could play that one game forever, which obviously we have these comfort games that we go back to, it's just like, I know it's not maybe necessarily profitable, but hey, capitalism fucking sucks.
I think for smaller indie titles, it's going to be more sustainable, like especially for like a Stardew Valley, where it's just like, yeah, you have to put in a lot of work to put out an update, but the amount of fan base and the people who are still like putting in time and money and like getting their friends to play, like they have at least a solid enough base, and like putting out a new update for it is going to be enough to continue to get new people into it.
100%.
But that's not how AAA big money companies operate. They're just like, let's go, where's that money, let's go,
money please. I'm looking at a list of games being released this year, and I am, let me tell you, not interested in any of these.
I was about to say, I just put an indie title on my wish list because it's actually from a publishing company that was started by some legacy YouTubers that I still really like and follow. But like, it's an indie title. It's not a big name thing. It's probably only going to cost like $10-15 when it launches. But yeah, like there's nothing really coming out anytime soon that I'm just like gotta play.
Yeah, not at
like,
all.
I'm basically going to just be playing Baldur's Gate, and then like in probably a month I'll start my like next Mass Effect playthrough.
Perfect.
There's a spiritual successor to the BioShock series that's supposed to come out this year. It doesn't have a date yet, but
well, if we're going on BioShock
seems
logic, we can expect at least 3 more years.
yeah, probably.
I mean, Infinite came out half-baked, so...
I like Infinite.
I would say I people hate that game so much, and I'm like, I remember it very fondly, but maybe I need to replay it. Maybe it wasn't good, but I liked it.
I remember like a lot of people cosplaying as the characters from the game, as Elizabeth and.
I think story-wise it was very popular. I think there were like some weird things that like went on with it mechanically. I didn't play it. I was never a BioShock person.
That's
I
wild.
love BioShock.
BioShock's great. I didn't play the second one, but I played the first one in Infinite, and I really liked it. So
You're not.
Yeah, I
missing
think
much. The second
I
one
think-
is just okay.
Yeah, I think I am. I do have, I think, Infinite on my wish list just so I can get notifications when it's on sale, but I haven't pulled the trigger on it because, again, when am I going to have time to play it?
Fair. They are long games. Can be.
Yeah. Well, not, honestly, that's going to be my homework. I'm going to play Bioshock Infinite because I've played it a long time, and I remember
Hey,
really
I'm okay with that being the homework assignment if that's what your homework
It's
assignment
not going to
is.
be. I already have something.
Well, what is your homework assignment for this week, Brie?
I mean, very fitting because we are talking about video games, but I am going to choose Arcane because neither of you have seen it. And hear me out. It's really fucking good. Way better than it has any right to be honest. And
well, it's League of Legends, so anything that's good coming out of League of Legends is like a miracle.
110%. And also, yeah, you might already know this, but I've never played League of Legends. I never fucking will because I don't fucking hate myself. So
my ex-girlfriend played League of Legends and tried to get me into it, and I was just like, this is probably where the road ends.
That was the biggest red flag.
That's not a sentence that's said very often. My girlfriend is trying to get me to play League of Legends. It's usually my toxic boyfriend's trying to get me to play League of Legends.
So the question, who is the real incel?
Who's to say? But yeah, Arcane season 1, because season 2 is going to be coming out in September. So we're going to do that. And also I'm going to include some additional viewing. There's a couple YouTube videos that kind of go into deep dives about like what's really important about this show, because the show is arguably pretty important once you get into it. It's rough. It's not fun in terms of like it's just sad. A lot of sad shit happens. Really fucking good though. So we're gonna go with Arcane, and I'm really excited to talk with you guys about it.
Cool.
All right. Cool. Well, I do remember watching a little bit of Arcane. It was another one of the shows that Emily was watching, and I was just like, yeah, I'll watching in passing, but I definitely didn't sit down and like absorb all of it. But I have the basics down, but it'll be good to revisit.
Yeah.
And again, going back to our conversation about like video game shows like being good all of a sudden, that actually has come up a lot in the conversation, so we can piggyback off of that. Seth, what's your experience with League of Legends?
None.
It's on Netflix,
Absolutely
right?
None.
That's the way to go.
Is it on Netflix?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I was about to say it. Okay.
No, everything froze for a second, so I was like, "Oh shit, I thought I lost you both." So,
okay.
yeah.
No, I just asked that if it was on Netflix. I remember it being on Netflix.
It is. Yes, I believe it is still on Netflix, so should be
Okay.
good. I don't know how many episodes it is, to be honest.
I think it's like.
But no,
12.
to answer your question, my only experience with League of Legends is how many people have told me that only like nerds and dorks play it.
Well, like the thing about it is like it was like the original free-to-play game back in the day.
Oh, okay. I thought that
Like-
was RuneScape.
Well, yes. But like it was the first free-to-play game that started introducing the free-to-play mechanics.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I thought it was
Well-
much newer than that.
Arcane is 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And 96 from audience. That is. I thought I was reading that wrong. That is very
pretty
impressive. So.
Yeah. I remember when League of Legends first came out, and like obviously like having the girlfriend who was playing it, but that like I remember when we started doing con stuff, like it was just like if you couldn't recognize a cosplay, it was probably a League of Legends character.
There's 8 billion. So.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Anyways, thank you everybody for joining us for another episode of Inner Friends. Inner Friends.
Inner friends?
Seth is the high one, not me.
Yeah.
Internet
But
friends.
I've been able to stay speaking. It's gotten slurred at times, but I have stayed coherent.
I
job,
at least
friends.
have whiskey in front of me. I'm gonna make that my excuse at least.
Okay.
Perfect.
But you're the one who did a bong rip on camera, so like you can't prove anything.
Two.
Well, thank you for joining us for another episode of Internet Friends. I am TCK Media Productions on most platforms. You can find that Seth23 on TikTok and Instagram, and you can find the Raccoon Loon
While
on
there
Instagram
still
as
is a
well.
TikTok, sorry.
Am I
I
right,
thought it was-
America?
Unless they can sell to American company that will also steal your data and spy on you, because somehow that's better than a foreign nation.
It's fine when
spying on
Facebook
you.
does it. Don't be weird.
Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
totally cool. It's cool when Zuckerberg has your information, but when G has your information, we have a problem with it.
Absolutely.
And there's
you can do
Raccoon.
Bree's plugs again.
Yeah,
because I
and then
talked
there's
over the top
Raccoon
of them.
Loon herself, Brie. You can find her over on Instagram and occasionally Twitch. I'm still trying to get her to play Baldur's Gate with me and Emily, but we don't have time because we're, in our 30s.
If I ever have free time, I
I was
totally
about to, from now on, if I see your Discord says you're online, I'm just going to be like, get on Baldur's Gate. Assuming I'm not already asleep.
Right, exactly.
Very much possibly. Anyways, thank you guys so much. We'll see you guys next time.